Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, programmers of all ages. So in last week's tutorial, we added we added new towers to the game as our ranged units. In this week's tutorial, we're going to be showing the same amount of love to our melee units in the form of a zombie and a skeleton. I thought it would be fitting, seeing as they are usually the go-to for melee characters in RPGs. So what you want to do just before we start off is go over to HaxeFlixel tutorial 3, tutorial 14, assets, and then images. And then you just want to get the skeleton PNG and the zombie PNG. Now don't worry about too much about this link, it will be down in the description below. So what you want to do is then drag the zombie and skeleton PNG. So you want to drag the zombie and skeleton PNG over into your assets and images folder. Then once you do that, you start up VS Code and I will meet you there. Okay, awesomeness. Now with VS Code open or your code editor of choice, we want to go into the melee monsters file, since that is, well, the melee monsters and we want to work with them. Okay, so to start off with, the easiest way I think to go about this is more or less how we went about this with the projectile. So we want to create an enum or enumerator called melee type. And we have a zombie. And we have a skeleton. Awesome. Now this will allow us later when we do map creation to simply sit down saying that this is a zombie or this is a skeleton, and then as we instantiate the unit at the specific spots on the map, we can just say that it's a zombie type or it's a skeleton type to make things easier for us later on. Awesomeness. Now we just want a private variable that holds the type of monster, so that if we ever need to get information about it, that we can. And then we want to say the type is equal to melee type, and then we can just delete this, and then we say a switch statement for the type of melee character. Oh, just before that, we want to say type is equal to type. So with the switch case statement, we can use either the underscore type or the just normal type that we passed in. It doesn't really matter. In the end, it should be the exact same. So there shouldn't really be any difference between the two. So first off, there's zombie. And then secondly is the skeleton. Now, for this zombie, if we go into assets, images, and then zombie PNG, we can see it is, let me just scroll left, 1, 2, 3 frames for the original idle down. Okay, but just before we do that, we want to say load graphic asset dot zombie PNG. Awesome. And it is animated. That's if I can spell true. It is 16 pixels by 16 pixels. Cool. We say set facing flip flx object dot right to false and to false, and then if we Control C, Control V, we can say the exact same for the left. Now the reason I specifically set both to false is because the zombie has like this bit of brain sticking out on its right side, or well, technically its left side, and I don't want to risk the chance of, so the zombie has a different animation for facing left than it has facing right, whereas the skeleton has the exact same animation for facing left and facing right. So for the skeleton, we would say that we flip this. So just to ensure that setting the facing flip for the skeleton, to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the zombies one, I specifically want to say that the zombie has no facing flip for either. Cool. Now next on to the animation. So animation dot add. Now we can say resting down. We said it was 3 frames, so it's 0, 1, and 2. It's 3 frames. And yes, it is looped. Cool. So we can then go on to say animation dot add resting right. Now let's see, resting right, so it's 1, 2, 3 animation frames for resting right. And since this one ended at 2, we say 3, 4, and 5. It is 3 frames and it is looped, so it is true. Animation dot add resting left. It should be another 3 animation frames, so it's 1, 2, 3. So it is 6, 7, and 8. It is 3 frames and it is looped. Cool. Then animation dot add resting up. Another 3 animation frames, and we can go here and see it's 1, 2, 3. So it is 9, 10, and 11. There's 3 frames and it does loop. Awesome. Next on to the moving animation. Walking down. Let me just scooch this up. So for walking down, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 animation frames. So we can say it is 12, 13, 14, and 15. It is 4 animation frames and it is looped. So animation dot add walking right. Press wrong button. Go back. So walking right, we have 2 animation frames since the hands are up, so it's not like with our player character that the hands on the sides are moving. So these hands are just up because I went with a very stereotypical zombie where it's like holds its hands out in front of him rather than swinging it or moving it, almost Minecraft style zombie. So it is 16 and 17. I turned off numpad accidentally. 17. It is 2 frames and it is looped. Awesome. Animation dot add walking. Come on, typing, you got this. Left. It should possibly be another 2 animation frames. So yep, 2 animation frames. So we can say 19 and 20. There's 2 animation frames and it indeed does loop. Awesome. Animation dot add walking down. So now we can go see. So walk. Oh no, that's wrong. It's walking up. My bad. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 animation frames for walking up. So it's 21, 22, 23, and 24. It is 4 frames and it indeed does loop. Now I didn't add an animation for attacking or getting hurt since I think I might get away with not having this since it's just an introductory tutorial and I'm not trying to build a full-on game. I'm just trying to explain parts of the framework to you. So we will not have animations for the zombie attacking, so it'll just constantly try to walk into the player, as well as it won't get hurt. So we might just say that if a projectile hits it, then it's stung for like a second, or it just like maybe flickers if we can find a way to do that, but it might be too high level and I might just do a tutorial on that later on, but no promises. Cool, so next on we have the skeleton. So we say load graphic asset paths.skeleton png. It is animated, so true. It is also a 16 by 16. Cool. And now I can just copy the set facing flips. I can just go Control C, Control V. Now I do want to set a facing flip for left, so we say true. Cool. Next up, we add the animations. So resting down. Now for the animations, I want to try and have the same animations for both characters so that we can just call the animation per character and have the exact same animation name, so there isn't issues, or that we don't have to say every time we call an animation we say switch the type and then say if it's a zombie play this animation, if it's a skeleton play this animation. We can just say play animation and both will have the exact same animation, if that makes sense. So let's just close this skeleton and then zoom in a bit. So the skeleton is 1, 2, 3 animation frames for resting down. So we can say 0, 1, and 2 is 3, and it indeed does loop. Cool. Animation.add resting right. So let's see. There's 1, 2, 3 animation frames. So it's 3, 4, and 5. It is indeed 3, and it indeed does loop. Now we can Control C, Control V, and just change the name of it, but it's still the exact same animation frames because we are flipping the facing to the left. So resting up, it has 1, 2, 3 frames for resting up. Cool. So there's 6, 7, and 8. 3 frames, and it does not tour, it does loop. True, not tour. Animation.add walking down. So for walking down, we can just 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is 9, 10, 11, and 12. It is 4 frames and it does loop. Cool. So animation.add walking right. It is 1, 2, 3, 4 animations for walking right. So it's 13, 14, 15, and 16. It is 4 frames and it does loop. Animation. Okay, well, for this part, we can just go up to this line, press Control C, press Control V, and just change this to walking left. Cool. Animation.add walking up. Scroll. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 frames for walking up. So it's 17, 18, 19, and 20. It is 4 frames, and indeed it does loop. Awesome. That should be all the animations set up for the melee monsters. So next up, we want to set up the how it handles the information. Now I just want to change the name from the AI capitals to AI underscore, just to fit with the naming scheme of things. And then under here where we say move towards a point, we want to go if the velocity dot x does not equal 0, or the velocity dot y does not equal 0, and touching equals f l x object dot none. So if it's not moving, or if it's moving and it's not like running up against something, we want to say if math _ m math dot absolute, so abs, velocity dot x is greater than math dot absolute of velocity dot y, can't I type dot y? So if velocity dot x is less than 0, let me just and we say the facing is equal to flx object dot left. Otherwise, if I can spell, otherwise the facing is equal to flx object dot right. Otherwise, over here we say if velocity dot y is less than 0, then facing equals flx object up. Else facing equals flx object dot down. So this I got straight from the tutorial on the HaxeFlixel site, but what it does is it uses the velocity of the player to determine which direction the velocity of the melee character, which direction it's moving towards. So if it's moving up, then set the direction to up and so forth. Now I want to add another function called private function animate. So this function will handle the animations for it. Now, before I forget again, we want to say animate, and we want to call it after the AI, so after we update it which way it's facing. So if velocity dot x does not equal 0, or velocity dot y does not equal 0. So this part I got from my own code back in the player class. And then we want to say, so if it's moving, switch, and then facing case flx object dot up. I hate it when it does that. It makes me want to cry every time. So animation dot play walking up. So if the melee character is moving up or facing upwards, and it's walking, then play the animation for walking up. In case flx object dot left. Why you do this? Why are you like this? Animation dot play walking left. Now we'll just do pretty much the same every time. So I'm just gonna Control C, Control V. So this one will be down. So we want to say down. And then this one will be right. So I want to say right. So if it's not moving, then else. We can just copy this. If it's not moving but it's facing, then we just say resting up. Resting. I'm just gonna click there and then alt click here. Just that worked out so badly. So alt click there, then shift, and then I say resting. So if it's facing up but it's not moving, then play the resting animation for up. If it's left but not moving, play the resting animation for left, and then the same for down and right. Awesome, that should be it as far as the melee character class goes for now. We can close it down, and then play state. Now over here where we create the ranged monsters, we can just say that is 10. Just make a space between those. We can uncomment the melee monsters. So I just want to say this one is -500. -500. And it doesn't just want the player, it also wants the type now. So we can say zombie. And then if we Control-C, Control-V, this line, we can go and say skeleton. Awesome, and that should be everything for this class as well, I think. So we can then go into our terminal with pressing Control and this squiggly thing, this little tilde character, I believe it's called. Then we say line test HL for hash link, and we want the debugging features enabled. Now I'll just let this compile and I'll come back as soon as it's about to finish. Cool, so it finished, and now we can see that we have little skeletons and little zombies running up after us. And we can still shoot the little buggers. And that's about it for today's tutorial. Now, before you leave, so if you enjoyed today's video, please drop a like, maybe think about subscribing. And it'll definitely help the channel greatly if you do so. And also, if you want to support the channel beyond simply just liking and subscribing, I would suggest you go on over to 8bitswag.com and maybe go and get yourself a nice hoodie, maybe a shirt. And we have awesome desktop stickers, which are really awesome. So definitely consider getting yourself an awesome hoodie with the Hax logo on it. So thank you again and enjoy your week. See you next time.